Sarah for that introduction and for inviting me to participate in today's ceremony. Not only is it an honor for me to be here with you today, but I also have to admit it's a tad sentimental. As I was telling Dr. Satarsky, the last time I was in this room was actually the day I got married. I was married here in the chapel just about 2 years ago, so it's really wonderful to be back here again today with all of you. Knowing that I got married at SEM probably provides you with a little bit of insight regarding my heartfelt affection and connection to this special school and community. We're here this morning, as we know, to celebrate the accomplishments of these 5 seniors who have been named to the Cum Laude Society. Congratulations to all of you. I know from my conversations with Dr. S. that you have succeeded academically while doing a very impressive job juggling many other commitments. And I'd like to say that certainly your accomplishments and contributions are impressive. While I was thinking about what I would talk to you about today, I decided I would visit the school website, which I hadn't done for quite some time. And I have to say I was struck by what I found there. SEM strives to make each girl proud of her ability to shape society rather than to be controlled by it. It goes on to say, at SEM we encourage our young women to develop strong convictions and to stand alone if necessary for what they believe is right. Don't get me wrong, there is a lot of really important and good stuff on the website, but I have to say that is powerful and I loved seeing it there. Letting girls know that they have a voice, teaching them to be heard, ultimately imparting upon them the responsibility to use that voice to benefit not only themselves but others. This is indeed a very special place. I've been where you're sitting. I understand. Maybe it drives you crazy that everybody knows who you are. Sometimes you can't get lost in the shuffle, and you can't get hide in the back, and you can't get away from very much. Believe me, I know. And I appreciate the fact that sometimes it seems a bit ironic that we're being prepared for the real world in what sometimes might not always seem like that realistic of an environment. Again, I've been where you are, we can be honest. You're surrounded mostly by girls and women here, but you have got to know that you are being prepared for life beyond SEM, beyond Buffalo, beyond college. It's true, in this small building, in this small community, surrounded by all these other girls. I think community is what I think of when I think of SEM, and I encourage you to enjoy it and to savor it and to take full advantage of all that is available to you because of the time you have here. As you navigate your high school career, I suggest that you not always take the safe or the anticipated route. I encourage you to go for it. And this means not always being afraid to fail. SEM's a small place, and that's the beauty of it. But it's also a bit of a disadvantage because when you do falter, everybody knows. But I know what that's like. In the spring of my sophomore year, I ran for Student Government Association Vice President. I remember standing at this very podium, giving my campaign speech to the school community. And it was a close race. In fact, it was declared a draw, and we had a revote, and I lost. So again, what's more public than that? A school-wide election, you go through it all twice, and you lose. And I'm human, of course I wish I had won, but I didn't. Oddly, it wasn't nearly as upsetting as I thought it would be. As a matter of fact, I still remember a beloved member of the faculty approaching me in the study hall to express her support for my efforts. And, oddly enough, her hope that I would run again next year for president of the SGA. Funny how my memory, all these years later, is related to the support I received in this community in the aftermath of the runoff election, and not at all the embarrassment for having lost. For what it's worth, I did go through the very public and questionable exercise of running for SGA president the next year against the same girl. And this time I won. Obviously, I'm a big advocate for SEM and the lessons that can be learned here in this unique environment. In addition to the countless life lessons, I was well prepared academically for college. As a matter of fact, I have to tell you, my first year of college paled in comparison to my first years at SEM in terms of academic rigor. I went on to major in history. I've always been interested in history and government and politics. Spent a big 24 hours. After college, I pursued my dream, actually, to work in Washington, D.C. on Capitol Hill. When I was a senior over spring break, my family took a trip down to Washington and we're touring the Capitol, and I was just like, place, I love the history, I love what happens here. Look at all these people in suits running around. And my father was like, Amy, there are hundreds of congressional offices, and they all need people to work in them. It's funny how the obvious doesn't always occur to you. Of course I could work there one day, and I did. It was wonderful. After a few years, it was pretty clear that I needed to go back to school for a graduate degree. Given the kind of interest I have, I went to school for a degree in public administration. After graduate school, I moved to Minneapolis, Minnesota, where I worked as a communications consultant. Yes, nothing to do with the public sector or with government. In fact, our firm worked with huge Fortune 500 companies and developed internal communication campaigns about employee benefits and pay. Needless to say, it was a departure from what I was doing, but I mentioned it here this morning because it was a job I got thanks in large part to the preparation I received here at SEM. To get the job, I had to complete several rounds of interviews, I had to submit writing samples, and I actually had to sit for a writing test. And I have to say, thanks to what was instilled in me here, when I look back on it, I was able to move to a different time zone where I only knew 3 people and to get a great job. That's pretty important, and it's empowering to know that you're able to take care of yourself and that you can provide for yourself. As they say in the credit card commercials, it's priceless. After a couple years in the Midwest, I realized that I did want to return to Buffalo. I hoped I could get a job in Buffalo. I was eager to apply my capital experience and my graduate education to serve the city that I'm proud to call home. There were a lot of unknowns. Would I get a job? Would I like living in Buffalo as an adult? The burning question to me, would I ever find someone with whom I was the least bit interested in being in a long-term relationship? Lots of issues, personal and professional. Putting the personal stuff aside, I figured if it didn't work out, I could always move down to New York or back to Washington, D.C. It's not that I wasn't optimistic, but I was willing to run the risk because I knew that it's what I wanted to try, and if it didn't work out, I had a pretty good plan B. Needless to say, I got really lucky. In the fall of 2001, I went to work as the second employee of an organization called the Buffalo Medical Campus, or BNMC for short. The BNMC, as some of you might know, was founded about 11 years ago by the region's major clinical, academic, and research organizations, Collide Health, Roswell Park, Houghton Woodward Medical Research Institute, Buffalo Medical Group, and UV, to create a medical campus in downtown Buffalo on the 100 acres around Buffalo General Hospital in Roswell Park. The goal was to create a world-class epicenter, a medical campus for clinical care, research, education, and entrepreneurship. Keep in mind that for decades, the institutions had coexisted side by side and had collaborated with regard to scientific research and clinical care, but they'd never taken a coordinated look at their planning, strategic planning, or for their environment. The BNMC was founded by the institutions in partnership with the city, the county, and the 2 neighboring neighborhoods, the Fruit Belt and Allentown, in order to develop a master plan for the area's development and growth. We then worked in partnership with the institutions, the public sector, and the neighborhoods to advocate for dollars and policy change to implement the shared vision. The initial collaborative effort has paved the way for some incredibly transformative events. In 2002, Governor Pataki launched what we called the Centers of Excellence program. The concept was to marry the strength of a resident university with a particularly strong industry sector, use it to drive innovation in the state of the art while also supporting economic development. We were fortunate to be designated one of the 5 original Centers of Excellence across the state. Because of the university's strong history in life sciences research and our supercomputing capabilities at the Center for Computational Research, we were designated the New York State Center of Excellence in Bioinformatics and Life Sciences. There are now 9 Centers of Excellence across the state. In March, Governor Cuomo designated a second center in Buffalo, this one in Materials Informatics. I'm fortunate now to work at UB and be part of the team developing the new center's research portfolio, public-private partnerships, and economic development activities. After Buffalo received the original Center of Excellence designation in 2002, construction began in an area that hadn't seen a lot of new construction for some time. The Buffalo Life Sciences Complex, a 3-building complex at Ellicott, Virginia Streets, which represents a $200 million investment by the state, local philanthropy, the federal government, and the private sector, has been built. The three buildings of this 200-square-foot complex are the Houghton Woodward Medical Research Institute, the University Center of Excellence in Bioinformatics and Life Sciences, and Roswell Park Center for Genetics and Pharmacology. Since then, we've continued to see a lot of public and private investment in the medical campus area. Just a quick rundown. The university purchased the old NYL facility on Goodell Street, which is where you're not going to know who Johnny Carson is. To the people in the back, where Johnny Carson's suits were made in Buffalo, and the NYL facility. That's now the university's Gateway building. The construction has begun on a new employment opportunity center along Ellicott Street as well. Very significant decision has been made to move the University School of Medicine and Biomedical Sciences down to the medical campus. Kaleida Health recently completed its skilled nursing facility on Michigan Avenue. Children's Hospital is moving to the medical campus. As you know, it will now be the John R. O'Shea Children's Hospital. And recently, I think just within the past week, a collaboration was announced with Roswell Park to treat pediatric oncology patients on a designated floor. The list goes on. Beecher Innovation Center, Ellicott Park, infrastructure improvements, and a much-needed parking garage. There's been significant collaboration. The Clinical and Translational Research Center and the Gates Vascular Institute are actually in the same building with the Jacobs Institute and the university's Biosciences Incubator. We had to have special legislation passed in New York State in order that these buildings could be built together. I could go on, but the point is there's a lot of collaboration and a lot of investment going on with regard to clinical care, research, education, and entrepreneurship in our community. There's a lot of talk, as you guys know, and probably particularly the seniors, about Buffalo's past and how this community might be considered a sinking ship. Well, as someone dedicated to our region's future, not just as a citizen stakeholder, but also because it's part of my job, I'm here to say that significant steps are being taken to strategically invest in all of our future. It's important to remember that we didn't focus on life sciences because it was a silver bullet for our economic recovery, or that it was just in vogue at the time. It's important to remember that this region has a very strong track record of life sciences innovation and discovery. For example, the libraries for sequencing the human genome occurred here in Buffalo. Did you know the very first human genome sequence was in fact a Western New Yorker? The prostate-specific antigen, the PSA test that men get, developed here in Buffalo. Surfactant replacement therapy for premature respiratory distress, beta interferon therapy for multiple sclerosis, the nicotine patch developed here in Buffalo. Building our strengths and assets to secure our future, that's what we're working toward. Don't misinterpret what I've said as encouraging you to stay in Buffalo if you're inclined to leave. Actually, quite the contrary. I encourage you to go, to continue to your education, to gather experiences, to live, to love, to be open to the possibility of coming home in the future. So the long and short of it was, I was very fortunate. I worked hard, but I also got lucky. I was able to move home. I've been able to work to positive change in my community. I was able to meet and marry a wonderful man with whom I have a beautiful daughter and stepdaughter. In closing, I encourage you to take full advantage of all that the STEM experience and this unique learning and living community have to offer. As I myself have learned here in these long, wide hallways, you can't win them all, but if you apply yourself, you're going to win a lot. Be willing to put yourself out there to take a risk. You can always go to plan B if it doesn't work out. And perhaps most important, listen to that voice I was talking about earlier. Use your voice to help yourself and others. Thanks for letting me be a part of your morning here today. I hope you all have a great day.